Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary, and today's video is going to be my Sorry Picks, my TBR for the month of April. So I do this game every month. The rules are kind of simple, but you'll kind of get the feel as we go along, or I'll try to link the one where I explain the rules in the cards if you've not seen this before. Also, in advance, I want to apologize for the sound of my dishwasher in the background. I had to do dishes, and I also had to film, so it is what it is. But before we begin with next month's TBR, let's catch up with how I did last month. In March, my board game picked 4 books for me to read, and then I had a punishment jar pick. The first prompt I landed on was Queer Rep, and for that I had The Weight of the Stars by Kay Ancrum, and I did read that. Then I got the prompt Ghosts, and for that I chose Jane Eyre, and I have started barely. I'm filming this about a week before March ends, so I have high hopes that I will be able to finish Jane Eyre in March, but since I've started it, I will at least get like 100 pages in before March ends, and then I'm just going to count it as good and will not be taking a punishment for that. For YA fantasy, I chose The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu, and I did read that. And for fantasy, I chose Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, which again, I have started and gotten about a third of the way through, and I will not be taking a punishment for that. This one I don't anticipate finishing in March, but I don't mind carrying it over. It'll be fine. My punishment pick was the lowest rated book on my TBR, and for that I chose Una Historia de Ayer by Sergio Cobo, and I have not started that, but it's only like 75 pages, and I have it on Kindle Unlimited, so I have a feeling that I will get to it before the end of the month. If it comes down to it, I'm just going to read it on the 31st and call it good. But in the off chance that I do not get to that one, and I don't mention it in my March wrap-up, I'll be taking a punishment for it next month, but I'm not going to take a preemptive punishment. So those are the 5 books that my game picked for me last month, and let's get into the rolls to see how many books I'm going to be reading this month. Okay, so we're starting with a red on fantasy, where we left off last time, and let's see how many books we're reading this month. A sorry, so whatever we get, we will just add 1 more to it. Another sorry, so whatever we get, we will add 2 to it. 3, so that's a total of 5 books. Move forward 10 or backwards 1. So backwards 1 would be paranormal. And 10 would be middle grade. I'm gonna go paranormal. So right off the bat, I got 2 sorries, which means that in addition to the 3 books that I picked, I'm also going to be reading 2 additional books, so that's 5 total, just from the beginning. And the first prompt that I landed on was to read a paranormal, and for this, I forgot to get it out, but it's right here. For this, I'm going to be reading Living Dead in Dallas by Charlaine Harris, which is the second book in her Sookie Stackhouse series. I started this, in November of last year, I think. I talked about it in a vlog, so I'll link it. It was a vlog where I read books by authors from Arkansas, because Charlaine Harris did live in Magnolia, Arkansas for a little bit of time. If you don't know, I live in Arkansas currently, and I'm about to leave Arkansas once I graduate from law school, which is very exciting, but also very bittersweet, because I've lived here for like 8 years now. But Living Dead in Dallas is book 2, and this is a paranormal romance series that the True Blood television show was based off of. We follow Sookie Stackhouse, who is a telepathic bartender in this small town in Louisiana, and there are shapeshifters and there are vampires, and it's just, a bunch of good fun. So I am excited to continue in the series. I've picked up almost all of these books at this point from like little free libraries around and from Goodwills and Savers, and so I'm excited that I'm going to be finally continuing in the series. Okay, prompt number 2 is move forward 8. Horror. The second prompt that I landed on was to read a horror, and for this I'm going to be reading Feed by Mira Grant, which is a zombie apocalyptic book, I'm pretty sure. I'll just read you the back because I'm not going to be very good at describing this, but it says, the year was 2014. We had cured cancer, we had beaten the common cold, but in doing so, we had created something new, something terrible that no one could stop. The infection spread, virus blocks taking over bodies, and minds with one unstoppable command. Feed. Now, 20 years after the Rising, Georgia and Sean Mason are on the trail of the biggest story of their lives, the dark conspiracy behind the infected. The truth will out, even if it kills them. Maybe the truth will come out, even if it kills them. I don't know. I think Mira Grant is a pen name for Shauna McGuire. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But I picked this book with that in mind because Middle Game is one of my favorite books of all time. And I am really interested in this series. I think it's a trilogy, and I love zombies. If you don't know this about me, I don't know how much I've talked about this, but I think I talked about it in my favorite tropes video. Zombie movies are like one of my guilty pleasures because they're so cheesy and so good. So I'm really excited to see how I feel about zombie books. Move forward 2. That's a book with queer rep. The third prompt that I landed on was to read a book with queer rep, and for this I'm going to be reading Loveless by Alice Oseman, which I read the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman, or the first 3 books in it, I believe, 3 or 4, I can't remember, in a reading vlog where I read them and then reviewed them based on them being really hyped. I will link that for you if you have not seen it. But this is a novel by her, not a graphic novel like Heartstopper, and I've heard amazing things about this and really good things about the ace rep in this, and I don't think, at this point in my life, I don't think I've ever read a book that purported to have asexual representation, but it's about our main character who has always felt really off amongst her friends because they've always had crushes on boys and wanted to go out with people, and she's never felt that way about boys or girls, and so she goes to college and learns about the A spectrum. So I'm really excited about this. Again, I've heard really, really good things about this. I believe this is one of Gabby from Gabby Reed's favorite books. It's either this or Radio Silence or both. I can't remember, but I'm very excited to read this. Book number 4, Move Forward 1, YA fantasy. The next prompt that I landed on was to read a YA fantasy. Yet again, I get this prompt a lot, and I've mentioned kind of all year that I've not been as into YA fantasy as I have been in the past. So I might switch out some of my prompts at some point to fit my reading tastes as of now. But I did choose The Midnight Lie by Marie Rakowski, which is the first in a duology, I believe, that's set in the same universe as her Winners trilogy. And this is supposed to be like a queer fantasy romance. Again, set in the same universe as the Winners trilogy, which I read back in 2020, I believe. So I really like that series, and I'm very excited to get back into the world and to read more Marie Rakowski's writing, because I do really enjoy her storytelling. And last but not least, oh, just kidding, sorry. So we'll add another book, so that's 6 now. Move Forward 1, nonfiction. Then I did unfortunately pull another sorry, which means I'm gonna add another book to this stack. So I will be picking 6 prompts and 6 books for this game. April is gonna be kind of a tricky month because I do have finals at the end of April. So we'll see how all of this reading goes, but I am hopeful that I can get through 6 books. If you watched back in January and February, I got 12 books, I think both months. So at least it's not 12. It's gonna be fine. The 5th prompt that I landed on was to read a nonfiction, and for this, I went ahead and chose Party Monster by James St. James, which is a true crime book that also was made into a movie starring Macaulay Culkin, and it's about, I guess, a series of murders that happened in the club scene in the 90s. I don't know. It was originally called Disco Bloodbath, but they renamed it, and it's obviously marketed to be this like very fun, goofy book, but I think it's about kind of serious subject matter. So this is another one where my hold just came in from the library, so I'm really excited to see what this is about and how this like goofy vibe plays into a murder. You know what I mean? So we'll see. And now, hopefully the last one, Move Forward 12, which is fantasy. The 6th and final prompt that I landed on was to read a fantasy, and for this I'm going to be reading another Brandon Sanderson novella. So if you don't know, I'm reading my way through the entire Cosmere and publication date order. I started last year. So the novella that I'm reading this month is Sixth of the Dusk by Brandon Sanderson. I don't know anything about it. I know that it's in Arcanum Unbounded, so I'm gonna have to get that from my library again and read through the novella. I think it's like 60 pages, so it shouldn't be too bad. I think there's another novella after this before the next full-length novel as well, so if I can read both, maybe I'll do that just to save myself on some library loan time. I'm not sure. So those are the books that Sorry picked for me this month. I do have a couple other books that I'm hoping to get to, one of them being The Hidden Girls by Rebecca Whitney, which the back says, for Ruth, a new mother recovering from postpartum psychosis, every day is difficult, and after months spent hearing voices in her walls and trusting no one, she's no longer confident in her own judgment. Neither, it seems, is anyone else. When she hears a scream from the local petrol station one night, the police are polite but firm. She must stop calling them every time she thinks she hears something. But Ruth can't quite let it go. What if there was a scream? What if it was someone in trouble, someone who needs Ruth's help? So this is like a domestic thriller about a woman with postpartum psychosis. Again, my library hold came in, so I want to read this before I have to return it. And then I have This Is Me by Chrissy Metz, which is an actress who was in the TV show This Is Us, which I think this book actually deals a lot with This Is Us, or is like specifically geared towards fans of This Is Us, which is a show I've never seen. But I love a memoir. And I think this made a list in like 2018 of like best memoirs of the year or something. And I have, anytime a memoir is mentioned as like being good, I write it down somewhere because I want to read it. So I want to read this at some point as well. But that's it. Those are the 8 books that I have like on my radar to read in April. Let me know in the comments down below what you are planning on reading for April, and if you've read any of these books, feel free to tell me how you felt about them. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you would like to see more videos from me, because I do post 2 every single week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!